Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Three Girls, One Monthly Catch Up. So, we are going to be doing our monthly catch up for the month of February. And this is just going to be our usual monthly get together where we talk about the things that we've enjoyed and done in our lives over the past month. And again, this is something that we like to do together because it ensures that we actually do it. And it's more fun to do it as a conversation rather than just talking straight into a camera by ourselves. So we're just going to be going over the usual categories. So we usually start with sort of like Wildcard, life events kind of stuff. And then we talk about decks that we've used and enjoyed over the past month, talk about some books that we've read and enjoyed, TV and movies that we've watched, and then any updates on some of our other hobbies besides tarot, any kind of fun things that we've done related to those other hobbies. So we can go ahead and get started. And Heather is going to be kicking us off this time around. So to start with the wild card life stuff, Heather, take it away.
I don't think I did all that much again in February. I feel like there's a theme when it comes to Wildcard. I didn't do all that much. I didn't really go anywhere in February. February was really cold in the UK, so I stayed in. I did like some spiritual type stuff. So I took my altar apart and cleaned it and reset it back up and went through all like the witch casket boxes that I had with all different stuff in and swapped stuff around and did all that kind of like spiritual tidy up kind of things. And I went to the usual monthly meetup that I go to every month of like pagan people. So it was a really spiritually focused month for me in February and a very indoorsy one because it was freaking freezing.
All right, I think I'm next. So February for me, my birthday is in February, so so that's always fun, and I had a very nice birthday. My parents took me out to a very fancy steak dinner, which was lovely, and got some lovely gifts as always. The big gift that I got was the Viking Village Lego set, which I'm very excited about. Currently working on putting together.
I mean, I got to see my parents, and I did get to see friends, which I guess that was the first time since my sister had passed that I'd been seeing people in person,
Mhm.
and I wasn't sure if I'd be ready to do that, but actually, I told myself, just go ahead and see people, and it turned out to be really nice actually to have that company, to have that support. So,
Mhm.
um, but that's about it.
Next up, we usually talk about decks that we have been using over the past month and what we've really enjoyed or not enjoyed so much. So I'll put Heather in the middle so that she can show off
Show
what
off the
she's been
deck
using.
that everybody's seen 1,000 times before because I spent a whole month with the Robin Hood Tarot
Wow.
because I got the book for Christmas and I really wanted to go back and reuse the deck with the book. And so I did loads of readings and I did loads of daily draws and I really, really enjoyed working with this deck. And sometimes I think I get so caught up with the new stuff that I have and wanting to try all the new stuff and wanting to swap things out every week so that everything's getting a go that
Yeah.
you forget how much like just joy and contentment and like just sense of I don't know, coming home even that you get from just using like a really well loved, really well known deck. And
Mhm.
it's been a really, really good deck for me this month. Actually, I've really, really appreciated it for lots of different reasons. Literally, I didn't use any Oracle decks. I didn't use any Lenormand decks. In February, I had like a full on committed relationship with the Robin Hood Tarot, and there was no cheating going on. It was
Mhm.
just one-on-one quality time. It was really, really cool, actually. And I just wanted something that was easy. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It was
Mhm.
like sometimes you're in the mood to really have to work
Mhm.
for like your readings and stuff. And sometimes I just want a deck that just
Mhm.
like I don't have to work at all. I understand why the cards come up the way they do. I have certain cards that come up over and over again for the same kind of thing. So as
Mhm.
soon as I see them, I know what they are. And I
Mhm.
just really didn't want to have to work for it in February at all. And with this one, I don't have to. So that was really
Mhm.
lovely.
So for me, I did work with a newer to me deck for pretty much the entire month of February, and that is I used the mini version of the Tarot of Oneness. So I was using this for all of my daily draws and just day to day like smaller readings and stuff like that. And I really really loved working with this deck. I think this deck is really beautiful. I very much enjoy the um, a lot of the takes that it has on a lot of the cards, like this Eight of Cups. I think is really really cool. For example. And I also love the sort of perspective that it gives, where it kind of puts you into the position of the figure in the card. And as a result of that, I feel like a lot of the readings, like the readings felt very internal. Like I sort of found myself, I just sort of realized that I wasn't like journaling very much over the course of the month about like what was going on in my life around me, because it felt, the readings felt like very much like they were just sort of bearing on my emotions and how I was feeling about things more than any events or anything like that. It felt very internal. I don't know how else to put it in a way that really makes sense. But this is a really really cool deck. And this is one of those ones where I I kind of thought that maybe this might end up being a deck that I would use to read for other people with. And again, now I'm not so sure, because that experience that I had with it felt very personal. And so I'm not sure that I would have the same kind of reaction to it necessarily if I was using it to read for somebody else. So I'm gonna have to think about that. But I really really enjoyed working with this one. I think it's beautiful, and I love how, like this is the hangman, and in this deck it's perspective. So there's just some cool takes on the cards that I think are really interesting. The other deck that I worked with that I I kind of decided that for oracles for like at least the next couple of months, I want to focus on oracles that I've had for a while but that I don't reach for very often, to sort of like make a final assessment as to whether or not I want to keep them in my collection. And so the oracle that I worked with for the month is the Oracle of Echoes, which I've had for ages. I've actually rehomed once before and then reacquired. Um, and I kind of feel like I might, now that I've worked for it for a full month consistently. um it was okay. It was one of the we just recently in our Three Girls One Deck live talked about how like having the feeling that a deck is just like okay, it's sort of the kiss of death for your relationship with it.
Yeah.
Like I can recognize how this is a really good oracle, and it's like really well put together, and it's got some really wonderful, like this card is great, like this is a beautiful card, the keyword is let go, like there's some really really fantastic cards in this oracle, and I can absolutely see how well done it is, and I feel like the energy of it matched really well um with the Tarot of Oneness, because it also this also has a very internal feel, this particular oracle.
Mm.
um but I also was just, I never got like super excited to work with it, and so I'm sort of feeling like, I don't know, this one might not be sticking around.
Yeah.
So because I'm just trying to sort of like pare down to just the things that
Yeah.
really are exciting for me, and especially with
Yeah.
oracles, it's like if it's not just like spot on like what I love, then if I'm not going to be excited to work with it, I'm never going to work with it.
Right.
So because I'm just like I'm not that devoted about working with oracles. So I might be letting this one go. But it is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's a wonderful deck. The artwork is amazing. The keywords are really good. It but it just, I don't know. It wasn't super exciting for me, I guess. So
Speaking of like oldies but goodies, Heather was talking about, I'm kind of in the same camp where I wanted to work with something that was very familiar that, I'd kind of been neglecting for a while. And this is just one of my ride or dies, and you will be sick of seeing this. You've seen this before. You're going to be sick of seeing it, but I don't care. It's
I knew
the
you were going to say that, and I'm never sick of seeing it ever.
I worked with it in February. It's bled into March. It's just, yeah, like I said, it's one of my ride or dies. I judged this so harshly prior to buying it. I was such a bitch about this deck because this is, yeah, as I've said before, this artwork is not my jam. But my goodness, we have such a relationship now, and it has been it has been seamless. It's just been effortless. So, and yeah, I'm just not tired of working with her yet. So, and then for Oracle, I used the Earthly Souls and Spirits Moon Oracle, and I did pair it up with the Everyday Witch. And this
That's
has
a
been
good pairing.
yeah.
Is this the mass market version?
This is the mass market
yeah.
version. It's just a beautiful deck. And I've talked about this one before, that really the strength of this deck for me is, the artwork is beautiful. I'd say there are a few times where there's a bit of a disconnect between the artwork and like the keyword, but I forgive it just because overall it's a great deck. And the guidebook is actually, I think, a great guidebook. There were times when I would get I would get cards like rejoice, and I'd be like, "Fuck you! There's nothing to rejoice about." But then, I would actually look in the guidebook, and the message would be, nice. It'd be like, you could even take joy in like the beautiful sky or something as simple as that, like nature. And I'm like, okay, fine. So yeah, this was a nice pairing with the Everyday Witch, especially.
Shall we move on to talking about books that we enjoyed in February?
I read quite a bit. Again, shocker. I'm going to stop saying that. But I read my favorite book of the month. So I read Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, which was a fantasy mystery thriller novel. And I read a lot of mystery thriller and I read a lot of fantasy, but I've never read a mystery thriller in a fantasy world before, so that was an experience. It was a 5-star read for me. It was so good. There are lots of things that you could pick holes in if I was being really, really objective, but it was just such a vibe. The whole book was just such a vibe. I enjoyed it from the minute I started it all the way through to the end. The main character is like by rep, which is fantastic, and is just so sarcastic and self-deprecating and hilariously funny, and also very like loving and loyal, and it was so good. And then one of the things I've seen a lot of people complain about who didn't like it was the character, and I'm like, I could tell as soon as I started reading that the author was British, because that character is so British, British. But it's set on a ship as well, so there's only like 11 characters. It's a closed circle murder mystery, which is something I really enjoy. And all these characters have special powers, but they don't talk about their powers, so you don't know who's got what powers, and you don't, like, the deaths are really mysterious and you can't work out how people are dying. And it was so much fun. It was just so much fun. I would highly recommend it to everybody. If you like mystery thrillers and you like fantasy and you like having enough, being given just enough information that you can start to piece things together as the story goes along, but it takes you most of the book to figure out what's happening, read it. It was so good. I had such a good time. And then the other book that I read that I really enjoyed was a romance. I know, but I am obsessed with Emily Henry. I really enjoy her books. I read Happy Place, I think it's called, about a couple who have split up. They were engaged and they've split up, and they're part of this really strong friendship group, and they all go on holiday together every year. So they haven't told their friends that they've split up. And she is supposed to be going on the holiday, and he has made excuses not to go. But when she gets there, he's there as well. It's like second chance romance, only one bed. I mean, it was really good fun. But also, like, it wasn't just about them. It was like their friendships and all of that stuff. I'm obsessed with Emily Henry. If people have books like hers to recommend, I want to read them all because that is the kind of romance I'm looking for. I freaking love it.
So the first thing that I do want to mention is just another reminder to folks that we did all agree to do a sort of like joint read of a book that we're doing kind of like Three Girls, One Book, sort of like book clubby kind of live in the month of May after we've all finished the book. And the book that we're reading is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. And I actually read it in February because I was like, oh, I better start it really early and give myself enough time to read it. And then I loved it so much that I finished it in like a couple days because it's just like so good. So I won't talk about it at all other than to say it's so good and you should all read it. And join us and like do our live thing when we do our like book clubby thing in May, because that book, loved it. It was so good. But so the real books that I do want to talk about, I did read the new Murderbot book that came out because I love Murderbot. Who doesn't love Murderbot? And you know, the only thing that I will really say about it without giving away too many spoilers is that if you read like the most recent, like first sort of like novel length, full length installment of Murderbot, where a lot of really traumatic shit happens to Murderbot, and they go through a lot. That this book is basically like, it's very like aftermath. It's sort of, it's like Murderbot has PTSD. Basically, is the thesis statement of the new one that just came out, and it's really good. As always, you know, the characters are fantastic. Murderbot is like one of my most beloved characters. Like I just love them. Like I totally get where they're coming from all the time, and they're just, it's so good. So anyway, so that is one of the books I read that I really loved. Another one I read was the newest Wayward Children book. So that's the series by Shannon McGuire, which basically is all about children who go to another world and then return. So basically like all of the, you know, when you think about like Alice in Wonderland and the Pevensies and Narnia and like all that stuff, basically the entire series is based around this school for children who have gone to these other worlds and then come back. And then, you know, like most of them are very bereft when they leave their magical world that they went to and like spend their lives trying to figure out how to get back. The most recent one is called Mislaid and Parts Half Known. And I read it on audio, and it was one of those situations where I don't know whether I actually didn't enjoy the book or whether I just didn't enjoy the narrator. Like it felt like it was only okay, but I feel like it might have just been because I didn't like the narrator. I feel like there's such a fine line with narrators of audiobooks when they do voices, of whether the voice sounds like actually gives you something to work with in terms of creating the character in your mind, or whether it just sounds ridiculous. And this one in particular like totally pissed me off because there's a character in the book from Minneapolis, which is where I live, obviously, but the narrator of the audiobook gave her a Chicago accent, which is like totally different. And I was so annoyed the entire time. I was like, Chicago is like hundreds of miles away from Minneapolis. It's like a 7-hour drive. The accents are not the same at all, and it just drove me bonkers. But anyway, so it was like okay. And then the only other thing that I guess I'm gonna put this in the books category, even though it isn't really a book, but I did listen to it. I did a lot of crocheting in February because I was working on a project that I was making as like a donation for a charity auction. And so that's how I managed to listen to a whole audiobook and also listen to a whole podcast. But I listened to season 2 of Bear Brook, which is a really, really good podcast. And the first season of that podcast was all about like familial DNA and how that is being newly used to identify crime victims or identify perpetrators. And then the second one is about false confessions, the second season, and it's all about this guy who's been in prison for like 30 years as a result of what he claims is a false confession. And there's a lot about like the science of false confessions and like how police interrogation like, you know, sort of like trying to get past the whole attitude that most people have of like, why would anybody ever confess to a murder that they didn't do? Like that seems crazy. And actually talking about the science of it and how interrogation tactics are really designed to elicit those kinds of things, you know. And it's really, really interesting, and I highly recommend it. I think that if you're interested in true crime, but you're interested in actually like the science behind true crime and something that's not like overly sensationalized, but that's just like genuinely really, really interesting, Bear Brook is really, really good. So highly recommend that one.
I did not do that much fun reading, I gotta say. It was more like informational stuff, like non-fun, like executive stuff.
Yes.
But I did manage to finish Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
So there is that. I finished Fourth Wing. I enjoyed it. We will not wax on about it because we did that last catch up, but I did enjoy it. I will read the second one. Yeah, it was it was a lot of fun and just a nice way to kind of decompress and not expend too many brain cells. You know what I mean? It's just a fun, fluffy, like just
Mm-hmm.
nice brain candy. This is great.
So I didn't watch a huge amount in February. I forgot what month we were talking about then. I watched a Korean movie called Badland Hunters, which has Ma Dong-seok in it, which was okay. It was all right. It was just an action movie about like a post-apocalyptic world and some weird science guy who was doing weird experiments on teenagers, and it was something to do with their pituitary gland or something. I don't know. It was fine. It was an enjoyable 90 minutes, but it wasn't clever. There was one moment though where I was actually yelling at the telly because I was like, they're fighting and this guy gets caught in a trap, like, you know, like a bear trap where he's hanging upside down by one leg, and he starts cutting his ankle. He starts cutting his foot off. And I'm like, but the rope is right. He literally has to move the rope out of the way to cut off his ankle. And I'm like, what are you, the rope is right there. You've just moved it.
Cut the rope.
Just cut the rope. It was the weirdest moment. I was like, I don't know why somebody would write that. It was fine. I wouldn't, like, honestly, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you really like the actor or you're really into mindless action films where the plot is a bit meh. And then the other thing that I watched was Percy Jackson and the Olympians on Disney Plus. So I signed back up for Disney Plus because I really wanted to watch it. I've just watched the episode in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
At the Lotus. So I've just finished that one. So I think I've got like 2 episodes left.
Okay.
And I'm really enjoying it. But like I said to you guys, I was messaging you guys, I was like, sometimes it's so dark. Like the screen is so dark that I'm like, there's a scene with Medusa that all takes place in a basement. And I'm like, I can see fuck all. I cannot see anything. I don't know where you are or what you are doing. I cannot see anything. So I've seen both of the films, and that was my introduction to Percy Jackson, and they're not great. Mm-mm. And now I have the box set, and I've read the first 2 books, but I haven't read the other 3 yet. But and I only started reading them the middle to end of last year, I think. So they're actually really quite new to me. Really, and the first series is very close to the books. It's much closer than the film was. It's good. Oh, yeah. I'm really, really enjoying it. And I also liked what I did like, because I don't think the book really does this, but the series did it, and I really appreciated it. Is they played into the whole like Medusa as a victim more, and I really, really appreciated that.
They really updated a few things.
Well done. Yeah.
And that was one of the main ones, and I think they did a really good job with it too.
Yeah, I think they covered that really well, and I think they handled it really well between that balance of the kids wanting to look up to and love their parents, and Medusa having her own story that, like, in many ways contradicts that. I think they handled that so well.
So TV wise, I am back on my Murder, She Wrote bullshit because I just missed Jessica Fletcher and I decided to get back into it. So I think I'm now in season 5 of Murder, She Wrote, and honestly, I love that show so much, and it's just great. And you know, like, how can you not love a TV series about an older woman who is a widow who has a very successful second career as a mystery novelist and then solves murder mysteries everywhere she goes. Like, it's just wonderful. Like, it's fantastic. And Jessica Fletcher is a queen, and I want to be here when I grow up, and it's the best. So I have been watching a whole bunch of Murder, She Wrote. That's pretty much the only TV I've been watching. Movie-wise, I watched Oppenheimer finally because it came out on streaming. And I actually thought it was really good. Like, I was very engrossed in it. It did not feel 3 hours long to me. I thought it was a really, really good, really well done movie, well acted. Like, I thought it was great. Just really great film. I also finally, like, I'm so far behind. Like, you can, I'm like naming stuff that's like came out months and months ago. But the other thing that I finally watched is Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I know it took me forever to actually get around to watching it. But I finally did. And you know, it's one of those movies that defies description, and my reaction to it in a way almost kind of defies description too. It's like I loved it, but also like it was so, like, it's a hard movie to take in because like there's so much going on, and you're trying to like fully figure out like from a plot standpoint exactly what's happening and exactly what you're seeing happen, but the ultimate message of it is really beautiful. And so I really loved it. I kind of feel like I might need to see it again to like fully wrap my brain around everything that I saw. I found myself like rewinding pieces a lot just because I was like, wait a second, like what did I just see happen? Like, but yeah, no, so I really enjoyed that movie as well.
So, speaking of Killian Murphy, Matt and I started Peaky Blinders. So we finished season 1 of Peaky
Mhm.
Blinders, which is basically, it's like a crime drama.
Mhm.
Takes place after World War One in
Mhm.
England, and it just follows the Shelby family. They're also called, they're known as the Peaky Blinders, and they're this like Irish Romani like crime family, and it's just following them along with their exploits and just their
Mhm.
crazy decisions and life choices. But anyway, it's a really, it's a fun show, and we are into season 2. We're almost done actually with season 2, but it's a fun show, and yeah, we're enjoying it. And then the other one that I started, or actually Matt and I started, is Shogun, and that's playing
Oh,
on,
I really want to see that.
it's
Me too.
on Hulu, and I think also on FX. And I don't know if either of you've seen the original Shogun with Richard. This really dates the fuck out of me. The
Oh,
original Shogun with Richard,
I've,
you have.
I've seen all those 80s miniseries with Richard Chamberlain, Shogun and the Thornbirds, and
Perfect.
like, oh my God, I've seen all of those. Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
So
so
yeah.
yeah, so very nostalgic because, and I was probably too young to have seen Shogun when I did first see it. I mean, very young. I should not have watched it, but I did. And so yeah, very nostalgic for me. And I just heard a lot of great things about this production. So and I only just learned that it was based off of a novel. I didn't know it was a novel.
Yeah, somebody lent me the novel when I was
Oh,
young,
okay.
but I can't remember if I ever finished it because it is literally like
It's
this big.
massive.
It's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
freaking huge.
Yeah. So
Well,
it takes place, what, 1600s, I think. And so there's this English sailor guy who was shipwrecked on in Japan, and there is this character named Lord Toranaga, who basically takes him prisoner. And Lord Toranaga himself he's in jeopardy of being essentially like impeached and executed by a counselor, like he's a council that he's a part of, because there's this whole power struggle going on, and essentially it's going to basically erupt into war. But he wants to use, he actually, and there's just a religious, there are religious unrests and, political scheming and all that intertwined together. But essentially, Lord Toranaga, with help of this translator, what's her name? Lady Mariko, he wants to use John Blackthorne, is the English pirate's name, as basically like a political pawn. If hopefully I'm getting this premise right, but so it's just, and it was produced, and the lead actor who plays Lord Toranaga is God, what is his name? Hiroyuki. Hiroyuki Sanada, I think. He is a very renowned like Japanese actor. You've seen him in American movies. You know, he's been in quite a few American movies too. But he not only like stars in it, but he produces it, and it's just so far it's gotten a lot of like good reception. And we're only in they've only released the first two episodes, and I've enjoyed them a lot so far. Like, whereas I think the original, and it's been like I don't remember much about the original at all with Richard Chamberlain. I'm like kind of curious to go back and watch it just to see. But I know that it basically that miniseries is very much from his lens as you know the Englishman, and he doesn't understand the language, you know what's going on, whereas this one you definitely get it from the perspective of like the Japanese characters, and so much of it is in the native language with subtitles and everything like that. So yeah, it's just Matt and I've been enjoying it.
Well, so our final category is other hobbies. Like, what have we done with respect to any other hobbies that we have? So,
I got my Switch out in February for the first time this year. I've not played it for a while because I've just had so much other things I've been doing. But I just had 1 or 2 days on the weekends, a couple of times in February, where I was like, I am going to play computer games for an afternoon and just do nothing else, and really enjoyed myself, and really need to get it out more. Actually, I think I need to get some new games on it and just really take advantage of it more. I'm one of those, but I'm not somebody who naturally thinks to play computer games, but when I get on them, I'm on them for fucking hours. Which is why I try not to play them too much, because I lose like a whole day to a game or whatever. But actually, every now and again, I've realized it's something I really enjoy and really is a really good way for me to just chill out. So I'm going to try and do some more of that. But other than that, and I've been using my iPad painting by numbers thing, and that is pretty much it.
my only hobby things I think I've already mentioned for the most part. Like, I did do a lot of crocheting in February, which is why I managed to listen to a whole audiobook and a whole podcast in less than a month. And so that was fun. I was just doing I don't have a picture of it, so I don't even know why I'm talking about it, but I just worked on a cowl kind of scarf thing that I made for a charity auction for some friends of my parents whose son has cancer, and they were doing a like fundraiser, and so I crocheted a thing. And then I have also been putting together my Viking Village Lego because I got that for my birthday. But I'm taking my sweet time with it because I just, I'm only doing like a couple bags at a time. And then, taking a break so that I don't like use it all up super fast. So those are kind of the only things that I really did in February from a hobby standpoint.
Yeah, I can't say that I really did all that much from a hobby standpoint in February. I did buy a couple more fountain pens. So I do have like now these two are added to my collection, which are really, really nice. They're both I think Hongdian. I think this is an N8 and an N7, and yeah, basically this is Sarah's fault once again because I found out via her channel, her video on fountain pens that these existed. So yeah, so now I have like 4 total pens, and I did buy also some ink called Borahead. Yeah,
Oh,
from
I forgot. Yes, we both bought the Borhe ink. Yeah.
yes, the Borahead. The which is like BTS inspired. It's a very beautiful purple ink. Um, based on BTS and the whole, their whole phrase, I purple you. And that I like the color. I inked up one of those pens with it, and I like it. And I also bought there's like a bottle of shimmer that you could buy with it. I was meaning to start on this, but I didn't. So maybe
I want some of these. They're so cute.
I've never crocheted before, so this would be like a first time learning experience. I mean, these are supposed to be easy. Like,
They are, yeah.
Are they? I had put this on my Christmas wish list, and so this was a gift. And I was searching for like an animal that I didn't have. So I'm just like, okay, that looks cute. I feel like, and it's a beginner kit, so this is this will be my first attempt at crocheting.
Well, I
Cool.
think that's everything. So that was our catch up for the month of February. So, of course, we will see you again for another one of these at the beginning of April when we will talk about what we did in the month of March. And thanks so much. If you have not checked out our most recent Three Girls, One Deck, that is up on the same channel. And it is the last video up on this channel. We had a live where we talked about Rider Waite Smith clones. It was really fun. So if you're interested in checking that out too, feel free. Our next live will be on Julie's channel on March 30th. So look forward to that. And yeah, I think that's it for February. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.